Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and this is a special topic for 2019 called chaos. And I focus on Jupiter, Neptune, Saturn, Pluto, and of course Uranus because it's moving out of Aries into Taurus. So let's get started. Chaos is international. And I'm going to give you my reading on this chaos. Whether you're touched by the politics, economics, or the violence depends on each individual astrological birth chart. If your ascendant, its ruler, or the planets in the first house is not involved, you'll just hear about the events. Place these planets outside your natal or progress chart and you can see your situation clearly. Because I am talking to many of you who are new to astrology, I am mentioning this. And for those who are new to astrology is a language and anyone can learn to read. Art of reading or the use of astrology is as ancient as the solar system. Planets and luminaries are somehow connected to us. And that's why we can read the planets and predict the future. So let's get started with Saturn and Pluto. Saturn's role is to organize through deduction, reduction, cohesion, and simplification into solid structure. It simplifies, but it reduces. That's its role, to reduce. It builds solid foundations. Governments are ruled by Saturn, as well as businesses. Pluto multiplies, just like pyramid schemes or organizations, and confuses due to control over complexity. It's capable of creating complex organizations. It's about powerful groups, where Saturn is about singularity. Saturn is trying to manage multiple power groups by reducing its complexity. Saturn is traditional and reliably stable. Notice what is going on with the State of the Union address. In order to give that address, I think Nancy Pelosi had to invite the president to the House because the Democrats now control the House. So in a way, this is describing that, is that there's many groups, and somehow you can't just because you're president doesn't mean that you can just have it your way. So that is just an example. However, Saturn is now in its own sign, Capricorn, hence strong and able to carry out its plans. Pluto is in Capricorn, so it's in Saturn's home or turf. Saturn is the structure that Pluto is in. That is the situation we have at hand. Somebody is a maverick and stands alone firmly, if we are talking about any one person or circumstance. So Pluto is the pyramid scheme and structure. Pluto represents many power groups. Where is Pluto in your chart? And Pluto rules the underworld as well as arm twisting. Sound familiar? So in January, Mars came along, strong also in its own sign, creates friction and fight. It won't back down without some kind of win. So it happened during 9/11 when Mars was very strong. Mars was in Capricorn, meaning it had the ability to carry out its mission successfully. That's why I am concerned about Mars conjunction to Uranus in February, which takes place next week. This could be catastrophic because Mars is strong. Mars comes to a boiling point during the week of the new moon in Aquarius. which is the 4th. But in I think it was 8th, yeah, the 8th, it reaches a critical point. And I talk about this in the new moon Aquarius forecast, that there would be a critical or crisis in the stock market, and there was. It plunged 200 points. So Mars is quick and swift, so there could be a disaster. It strikes rapidly. So the following week, it cuts, I'm talking about this week, it cuts through Uranus, or may even get rid of Uranus from battlefields, oil fields, semiconductor sector, patent infringements, intellectual property, auto sector, or any field that is undergoing turbulent times, and especially the oil fields. So therefore, finally, Mars takes action and Uranus moves out in March. The disruptor moves on or out. Then it moves on to its next mission or field of disruption, which is Taurus. Okay. So let's move on to Jupiter and Neptune. Jupiter and Neptune are in square most of the year. Jupiter is co-ruler of Pisces and it's in its own sign of Sagittarius. This is where it gets interesting. Sagittarius is about immigration and law. Neptune rules the poor and disabled. Both are strong in their own signs, but Jupiter is the stronger one. Why? Because Jupiter co-rules Pisces, the sign that Neptune also rules and is in. Jupiter rules the rich and Neptune the poor or the disadvantaged. Jupiter is the higher benefic, and even under the worst condition, this planet will meet you more than halfway. This is why some astrologers are almost exclusively inclined towards Jupiter. It's human to seek luck and prosperity because this planet is associated with luck, prosperity, and expansion. For instance, at this writing, I read that Facebook founder is raising funds for affordable housing in the Bay Area. Microsoft founder is also involved in similar project elsewhere, I think Seattle, to help the homeless. Here we see Jupiter helping the poor or trying to ease the pain of homelessness. These two planets rule corporations and charitable movements and institutions. Philanthropy is solely ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius, and the 9th house. Because Jupiter is applying to a square aspect to Neptune, this movement is necessary. In other words, they're doing this out of necessity. 90 degrees aspect means necessary. So let's now read another application of Jupiter square Neptune. Jupiter is the dispositor of Neptune because it co-rules Pisces. That means there's a relationship hard to define, yet the bond exists. For instance, lawyer and client, real estate agent and client, investment advisor and client, or even star athletes or teams and fans, investors and companies, to name a few, have relationships, fiduciary or not. There's a bond that exists between the two. What are you going to do? Cut off your leg because it pains you? No. You find a way to alleviate the pain, and that's what's happening. Because there is a relationship between Jupiter and Neptune that really can't be severed. So, under this Jupiter square Neptune transit, both parties are trying to avoid hardship and are at odds with each other. There's a bond, legal or not, that binds both parties. That binding force is the signs. If you are a sports team, you need fans. If you are an investment banker, you need clients. You don't want to ruin your reputation or anger your clients to a point that you limit or forfeit your business. The two planets are like a family in a sense, because there's that invisible bond. Basically, whichever side you are, you can't just walk away that easily, painful or not. You go through the pain and hassle and wait for it to be over. Meanwhile, you're just trying to get around the problem. In the media, things can be blown out of proportion, and neither side can really see the absurdity or the matter is too sensitive. Media can be misleading because Jupiter squares Neptune and can lead to confusion in communication. Media and advertising and the court or the court of law are under the rulership of Jupiter. Watch what happens in Washington with the media. There's a lot of intrigues here. Somebody should make a movie because the plot thickens. Media and the law now. If you are ill, the pain could be excruciating and you may have to take opioids. That's why the case for opioid addiction is surfacing in a major way. You won't be affected unless your ascendant, its ruler, or planets in the first house is touched or affected by the lunations and transiting planets. You just hear about it. With this Jupiter-Neptune transit, you're going to hear about adoptions or even adopting a substitute such as a sister or even pets or robots. There will likely be many substitute teachers who are foreign nationals in universities and hospitals. Substitute nurses, I guess. Many foreign nationals who are illegal immigrants will likely disappear or go away under this transit because Neptune rules disappearance. So Neptune and Jupiter square also will expose church scandals. This aspect very much involves religious organization. There could be scandals concerning illicit affairs as well as orphanages. Neptune-Jupiter square also is going to bring hidden racial problems to the fore because Jupiter rules races and Neptune hidden secrets. Secrets come out and exposed openly or are exposed openly for public scrutiny or judgment. Why? Jupiter is forthright, believes in what is right, clearly, and won't stand for reticence. Sagittarius and its ruler is going to call it as it is, like it or not. So that's why the court of law is ruled by Sagittarius and its ruler Jupiter. If you try to silence them with blackmail or extortion, it won't work because Jupiter is in its own strength. Sagittarius. It is in its dignity, and it also is a co-ruler of Neptune. Jupiter has been brought out into the open to be cleansed. Jupiter, in its own sign of Sagittarius, won't stand for shadiness. But it's a great planet that will meet you more than halfway. So right now, it's in a good condition, just frustrated because Neptune is squaring it. And Neptune does not deal openly. It hides. Totally unacceptable to Jupiter. Look at the exposés we hear about in the news. It started with Jupiter in Scorpio, sex scandals, and still continuing. In commerce, companies are waiting for cannabis legislation. Cannabis is a drug or a substitute. Petrochemical industry, publishers, television, media, footwear, film, pharmaceuticals, software, manufacturers, distillers, beverage, cosmetics, philanthropic foundations, religious organizations, immigration, fishing, orphanages, oil, gas, and even cruises, like the Princess Cruise Line or something like that. Just to name a few are going to be in the spotlight. Or the film industry, I think I mentioned that. And you can also hear about astronomical earnings or almost unbelievable earnings. Why? Because Jupiter is square Neptune. Major legislation that affect both the rich and the poor will be awaited. The 2018 Farm Bill passed in December of 2018. I think that legalized industrial hemp, cannabis, because it's known to have medicinal effects. For those in the rural areas and on welfare, it is supposed to help find work. So many companies are in a race to capture their share of the market in Asia, not necessarily China. Foreign markets are now hot places for global companies. The attitude is, no matter what happens, I am going to be there now for tomorrow. For the leading U.S. companies, this is survival of the fittest. I think it's called Thucydides trap. Thucydides trap, I think. That's where you take care of your potential opponent before it takes care of you. So this trap is about taking care of that opponent. So Jupiter square Neptune is also war in a certain sense, but it's kind of a soft war. You're not dealing with guns. Look at U.S. trade dispute. Both sides need each other. U.S. is the buyer and China is the seller. Look at U.S. and North Korea. Well, in the past, no U.S. presidents would ever talk to the Hermit Kingdom, but this time the country got the attention of the U.S. president. So it's a poor country that came into luck when Jupiter entered Scorpio, because Scorpio rules North Korea and transformed the country. Now Jupiter is in Sagittarius. The country wants wealth and fame. It wants to be part of the flourishing Asia. However, it must denuclearize, but doesn't trust the U.S. What happened to others who gave up weapons? So basically that's what this is about. However, it too can become as prosperous as other Asian nations. With Uranus leaving Aries, North Korea could join the rest of the world. In fact, U.S. could pull out of South Korea gradually because Uranus is leaving Aries. I think there are 30,000 troops there. Remember that Uranus is moving into Taurus. Let's watch the budget and how we spend our money. And this is, and you hear about the pullouts because of that. Is the money factor. Now we turn to Uranus, the disruptor that revolutionizes. It's moving out of Aries to go into Taurus. So Europe, especially France, Germany, and England, was hard hit with violence when this planet entered Aries. Finally, the collapse of Greek economy and the massive immigration situation that is now climaxing with Brexit. Germany, the powerhouse of EU, could be replaced as a key ally in Europe. Uranus could turn Poland into a powerhouse like Germany when it moves into Taurus. Why? Because Taurus rules Poland. Germany's economy became too independent on China. So right now, Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank are not in a good place. When the banks are not profitable, branches are closed and cash circulation is affected, which necessitates cards. Europe does not have much of a choice. So I guess cryptocurrencies become logical. What then are the implications for the US dollar? Will it retain dominance as the world currency? Remember, oil is quoted in dollar. China has its own futures exchange. China is far ahead when it comes to being a cashless society. For now, the US dollar is strong because the North Node is in Cancer and the South Node in Capricorn. Hence, the bond market is concerned about the yield curve. See, North Node is Jupiterian and the South Node is Saturnian. So one of the first things you learn in economics is the price and yield are inversely related. So watch what happens this summer when we have a solar eclipse in Cancer. In the US, it's almost all about the yield curve. Debt restructuring, pension fund reform, or Social Security and Medicare issues. You don't worry about the North Node because it is Jupiterian, or expansive, or lucky. The South Node is where you find trouble. So now let's turn to Japan, an island nation that's now the third largest economy in the world, replaced by China, whom they invested in heavily to lower their cost of manufacturing because of high tariffs imposed by the US. That was way back. So Japan will now have a new emperor, and in 2020 they'll host the Tokyo Olympics. This country keeps a low profile. This country went through what China is going through now with tariff and eventual yen appreciation, which was disastrous for the export sector. The real estate bubble bursted, and the government is trying to get out of the deflationary cycle. The current government has been trying to raise consumption tax to pay for its debts. Its push into Asia tourism has been successful, and it's going after the rest of the world's tourism market. It's likely that the Tokyo Olympics could change the current currency transaction system or infrastructure by implementing cashless transaction. Not necessarily Bitcoin, blockchain, I don't know. But the reason I'm mentioning Japan, it's because of that. Uranus going into Taurus. I don't know what it's going to be called, but it's going to be cashless, I think. This is a Pluto nation, Pluto rising, Sun in Aquarius in the 10th, very much a leader in technology. Its chart is just like the US chart, or Gemini rising. Look at their government. Yes, it's a successful democracy with the royal family and a parliamentary system. It's the only Asian nation in the G7, I think. A key ally of the US in the Pacific. So its push towards cashless society is significant. Uranus moving out of Aries. US is moving out of Syria. When Uranus moves out of Aries next month, the violent war should be over. When I say violent war, I'm talking about guns, Because when Uranus moves into Taurus, it's going to be about commerce. As SoftBank CEO says, violent wars are over. It's about winning without fighting. That's the Sun Tzu art of war. So Uranus in Taurus, online retailers, including Walmart, are aggressively pursuing Asian markets, making blockchains more favorable or cashless more favorable. However, I see vulnerability in 2020, or maybe it was 2021. I have to check again. It starts from abroad and causes crisis in the US. Disrupts the stock market and the brokerages as well. This involves online retailers, although many of the brokerages and retailers are online. So I can't really just single out online, because that's what they are. They're all online now. So Uranus will transform the Western Union, the transaction processing companies. These are the ones that process your purchases online if you buy through any of the online retailers or merchant bankers. Banking will have to reinvent themselves. It's not just about cryptocurrencies. Pragmatically, it's about PayPal, Visa, MasterCard. Okay. So who's making money in the US? That's really what it's going to come down to. Do you want foreign process to overtake the US banks and markets? I think issues could be along those lines. Uranus in Taurus affects Dublin, Ireland, Australia, Holland, Poland, South America, Wales, Iran, and Dublin, of course, because of the Brexit. In Australia, I think has to do with the property and the agricultural sector. I think this is a country that underwent pension reform, and now the immigration may have to be tackled. And I think it will deal with immigration and legislations, because it's also a producer of agricultural commodities. And the country has done well, especially because of its iron ore, the mine. They had the world's largest iron ore mine. So I think the media companies, the big media in Australia, could also come to fore. So it's going to be interesting. But why do I say big media? Well, because the next eclipses will take place in Gemini Sagittarius. So now we're moving towards the tail of US-China trade war, or this conflict with China. I think the tension will shift to India, South Vietnam. In the Middle East, Libya, Palestine, Saudi Arabia. In Europe, London, Wales, Belgium. In the US, San Francisco, New York, West Virginia, I think that's cold country, South Carolina. In Central and South America, Venezuela, Brazil, and finally, Canada. These are the countries that going to take center stage. So that is